Hey, well, it's the trip to Fed, man. Rob Brown here with you, broadcasting live from Smyrna, Georgia. And several people have said, check out 1911, a really good breakfast spot. I hadn't been there yet, but might do it in the morning. Rob Brown and Brendan Martin here with you. We got Doug Dean, Frank Duffy, roundtable discussion. Jordan Hill batting in the leadoff position, 24/7 Sports covers Georgia. Have him on for about 15 minutes. It'll be a fast morning. Will Gunter, after that, talking about South Carolina and Georgia. South Carolina and Clemson. That is two teams, number 12 and number 15. There are playoff implications in that rivalry. It's the highest ranked rivalry in the SEC this year. Okay, that's pretty special. All right, Ken Capps will join us about a quarter till. We're going to be covering a lot of ground in between, so get pen and paper handy and take notes, because Sidelines is here. And smash that subscribe button. Take a picture of it with the QR code on your cellular phone. So, guys, day after Thanksgiving, a lot of people have a food hangover. Now, it is what it is. You can say what you want, but it's been a wild week. I watched the Memphis-Tulane game last night. Listen, there are no safe spaces, where you can go hide. Memphis gets up, and then they had that one drive. You give a team 45 yards and penalties. It's like everybody has these drives, and you go, how did they do that? Now, question for today, and I hope Jordan is going to be with us here in a minute talking about Georgia and Georgia Tech. But, guys, here's an interesting question, and I'm asking this in all seriousness because if you listen to what Nick Saban said when Alabama and Tennessee were playing, he said, they consider that a bigger rivalry. And I say this in all seriousness. Does Alabama still consider Auburn a rival? Or has Tennessee and LSU and Georgia replaced the Iron Bowl? Because if that's the case and their team is going to go through the motions today, it gives Auburn a really good chance. But what concerns you if you're Auburn is Alabama's there at number 13 knocking on the door to get into the playoff, and you got to say, hey, are they going to come out extra motivated to get to the playoffs? So I'll start with
I just want to say happy Thanksgiving and hi to Frank and Doug. Excuse Rob, my host this morning, is a little bit jacked up because he missed a day, so he's got to get it out. You know what I mean?
We got
to weather that storm.
We got to get 120 minutes into 60.
All right, so we go. So hi Frank, hi Doug, love you.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the show. Okay.
Good seeing you, Doug. Good seeing you, Rob. Good seeing you
today. Sidelines it's like we live in the median on I-95. You got to pull out of the driveway doing 110.
No doubt.
Doug, what do you think about that, what I just said? I say it because you get this impression watching TV that it's just an insignificant, doesn't matter.
Happy Thanksgiving belated to all you fine fellas in our audience. That I know Rob and everyone, Brendan, everybody that produces this appreciates the audience because that's how you get sponsors.
Absolutely.
So, before we dive into your question, which is on point, I was up at 4 a.m. yesterday. I had 3 big birds on the big green egg that barely had to shoehorn them in there. And the spread of food was, I set out to hurt myself, and I think I succeeded.
Mission accomplished, huh?
And Brendan, what a difference a month makes in Gatorland, brother. Golly.
God.
But to your question, Rob, there's a bunch of Auburn people who certainly hope, at least for one day tomorrow, that Alabama does not consider Auburn a rival. But in the words of the great Beebs, Gene Stallings, when they were playing some directional school, I've told this on here before, it's worth repeating. He was asked, well, Coach, are y'all going to use Southwest Louisiana game to kind of practice for Tennessee? It was like that. And Stallings said, well, let me just tell you, this is a big game, Southwest Louisiana. If you don't think it's a big game, just go out there and lose it.
Yeah.
So you better believe. I don't care what the fans think. To me, and I'm complimentary of Alabama throughout the year enough, and they earn it, that I hope I can be afforded one sort of playful shot at them. I've always felt like it was some mind games to say that Tennessee's the real rivalry and we don't really take
no doubt.
Iron Bowl. So what they're trying to do, some of them, I know there's some old liners that really do think of Tennessee these are guys that lived back with General Neyland was coaching Tennessee.
Yeah.
And so they do take it seriously. But the idea that the Iron Bowl is not the numero uno rivalry for both of these schools is, to me, a little bit playing fast with facts and emotion.
All that bullshit ends when they kick off the Iron Bowl. Yeah. Trust me. I've watched enough of them on TV.
You know what I think part of it is, too? They're so afraid, some of these people, of losing the game. They act like it's no big deal. And I think people all do that. And Frank, by the way,
whistling in the graveyard.
Whistling past the graveyard, exactly.
Watching in Ullman Stadium, and I was at Thanksgiving dinner over in Dunwoody with some one of Mallory's childhood friends, and the mom was from New Orleans, went to Tulane. Oh, my God. The gumbo. I said, I know it's real gumbo because my friend Frank Duffy, I've learned this from him. I've always said, if there's a bay leaf or two in there and a crab claw, it's real gumbo. Right. It ain't that crap with the little mini shrimp that you get at Walmart.
No, we call that plankton. No, you don't put plankton in there. You go for the big 30. Yeah, you go for the big 20 count shrimp.
Yeah. Well,
am I seeing a Longhorn hat?
It's in honor of our pick for national championship.
There you go.
Doug. I mean, if we don't win tomorrow, it's going to be a little bit harder road. But hey, look. First of all, Rob, you're exactly right. I was in New Orleans 2 mornings ago before I drove back here to Atlanta for Thanksgiving, and it was so bad they were trying to give away tickets for Tulane people to go. I mean, look, I get it. Their students were off, but uptown New Orleans, where I grew up, I was born and raised there, and I was born and raised a Tulane fan. I was a ball boy when I was in school, in junior high. I have no idea why they don't support that team. Their team was 1 win away from backdooring into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they were literally trying to give blocks of tickets away for anyone who would actually sign a waiver to commit to actually going to the game. And I get it, Thanksgiving evening, and New Orleans is a big food town. I get it all. Yeah. But let me tell you, there was no reason in the world why those stands shouldn't have been packed last night. When you're playing, and look, they've got a championship game that's coming up. Win, lose, or draw, they're going to be in the championship game. But now it's going to be up in Army, not in New Orleans with that law.
Let's do this. Jordan Hill may have overslept and may be in a turkey coma. We're supposed to be on here talking to Georgia. Look, we'll go to Will. Will, we'll keep you only about 15 minutes. I know you got a big day ahead of you. But I heard Shane Beamer, the Fighting Beamers. He was saying something that was pretty prophetic. He goes, this is the highest ranked rivalry in the SEC this weekend. You've got 12 Clemson and 15 South Carolina. So there's no other SEC rivalry that's got 2 teams ranked that high. And South Carolina is playing some damn good football. Lenore
still got a shot.
Yeah, they've got a shot. So let's talk about what's going on in the upstate up in Clemson today. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Yeah, I guess. Well, yeah. I mean, number 3 Texas and number 20 Texas A&M. I didn't think about it like that, but we were talking this morning. It's the 7th time in history, which is not good. This is not a good stat for South Carolina. 7th time in history that these 2 teams have met as ranked teams. South Carolina's actually the previous 6. South Carolina's actually 5-1 in these games when these 2 teams meet as ranked opponents. And South Carolina's only gone into this game once being ranked higher. That was back in 2013. They were 14 and Clemson was 18. But certainly it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of excitement for this rivalry. There's always a lot of excitement for this rivalry. I mean, it's for our state, it's huge. But now that you've got, and I think this is what makes the college football playoff a lot of fun. I don't think South Carolina is in a position to get in, but they're being discussed about potentially getting in. Clemson, they're going to be watching that Miami-Syracuse game at 3:30 after the Carolina-Clemson game. But, man, there's some playoff implications, 9-2 and 8-3. South Carolina fans really feel an opportunity to maybe turn the tide in this rivalry a little bit when you look not just at what Shane Beamer's doing, but when you look at Lenore Sellers and how he's coming along, and you hope that you have him for 2 more years. This is fun, man. It's we unfortunately the last decade this rivalry has had very little juice. Will Muschamp just kind of sucked it out of this rivalry by just getting his doors blown off on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
Well, 2 years ago, it was a great game. It was an exciting game watching the 2 play. Spencer Rattler, who's now a New Orleans Saint, had just one hell of a great ball game. But, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's in the other Death Valley or if it's in Williams-Brice. When these two play, you can what is the old adage? You can throw out the record books. Well, you don't have to throw out the record books in this one. They're actually meaning something. And you know, I think South Carolina brings it in this game. I think they've got that opportunity. They've got, you know, a lot still on the table. And look, Shane Beamer's my SEC Coach of the Year. If they were dumb enough to ever give me a vote, that's who I would be voting in as the Coach of the Year. So I think South Carolina has a great chance of going into this ball game and winning it.
Yeah. You know, we were talking about, we just wrapped up our show here about 10 minutes ago. And one of the big things that we're talking about, Clemson's really beat up on the offensive line. Their offensive line hadn't been particularly great this year, but now they're really, really beat up. Marcus Tate and Tristan Lee are questionable for the Tigers. And South Carolina's defensive line is, I believe, second or third in the nation now in sacks. Obviously, the season that Kyle Kennard has, he's 2 sacks away. 2 sacks away from tying Jadeveon Clowney's school season record, not overall.
Not career, but wow, that's pretty impressive.
But he's got 11.5, and Clowney, I think in 2011 had 13.5. And then Dylan Stewart, for the record, is actually a sack and a half away from tying Jadeveon Clowney's freshman record with 8. Clowney had 8 in 2010. So, you know, how does the defensive line match up against that Clemson offensive line? Remember, Clemson only had 8 yards rushing against Pittsburgh until that final run by Cade Klubnik to take the lead and win the ball game. So, you know, that's kind of the big one that everybody's been talking about. We discussed a good bit this morning.
Doug, you know, we talked about running the football. You watched South Carolina play this year. They had LSU till they didn't. They had Alabama till they didn't. They crushed Texas A&M. What do you think?
I'm super impressed with what South Carolina's done this year. And I know that their fan base, they're happy, and they're I wouldn't be shocked if Beamer got an extension. He may not need one, but it's those things. Sometimes a vote of confidence matters in recruiting. But I also know that South Carolina fans, in no small part because of having Steve Spurrier there for a pretty fun run, they have higher expectations. So I think if we like to talk about these coaches as like stocks, Rob and Duff, South Carolina is a buy, and you might have waited too long to buy them.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed with Shane Beamer. I didn't know enough about him maybe prior to a year ago. And I sort of I might have labeled him as he's going to be worth 1 or 2 big upset wins a year. But what he's done this year is, honestly, I think there is a case to make that they're the more appealing 3-loss team if they beat Clemson today. That's a big if. And then I like what Dabo said. This is a playoff game today, at least for Clemson, and who knows, maybe for South Carolina.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that Clemson offense against that South Carolina defense. That's the 2 strengths of both of these teams, and that's where this game's going to be won or going to be lost. And look, South Carolina has to run the football. They have to control that offensive line when their offense is on. And look, you know, that was kind of the struggles of both these teams was, you know, though South Carolina, you know, I love what they've done offensively. I love the fact that they have a mobile quarterback. But that's the game is going to be won on what South Carolina can do to stop that Clemson offense. And I'm telling you, I think they can shut them down. I really do. And to Will's point, you know, they've got injuries on both sides of the line for Clemson. I think South Carolina can take advantage of it. I really do.
Will, I want just hearing what he just said. Clemson at 9-2 in the ACC, they're big games. The 2 best teams they've played. Look how they fared, and look how South Carolina has fared. If you compare it, does that mean anything? Carry any weight?
I hope it does. I mean, South Carolina certainly, you know, I don't know how good the SEC is. We've kind of kicked that around a little bit this week in terms of looking at the conference, but I don't think there's a question that Even if you want to say, well, the SEC is not the elite conference this year, which again, I think we kind of came to the conclusion they probably still are the best conference when you talk about depth. It's still a grind. It's still, look, Texas A&M, Missouri. Those two teams could go into the ACC and probably win it. If not, definitely be in the championship game. I think the stat that's interesting here that you look at with Shane Beamer that he needs more credit for. He is now in 4 seasons. He is now 12-4 in the month of November, and it's not just beating up on Jacksonville State and some of the first year to get bowl eligible. They had to beat Florida and they had to beat a decent Auburn team, if you remember. Thank you, Mike Bobo, for getting they had Tank Bigsby. That helped tremendously. The second year or last year they had to beat Kentucky. His second year, 2022. In 2022, he beat Clemson and he beat Tennessee at top 5.
Great.
The way he coached it, it's not a fluke anymore. You don't look at it and say, like, well, wait a minute, maybe they're just playing a bad schedule or
no, you're destroying teams.
Yeah, he's beating, and well, like we said, this year, that A&M game was a single-digit point spread. I think they were a 2-point spread. Missouri was obviously you got Missouri's best shot. He's not just beating bad SEC teams in November. And I think that's the other thing. Now that's become a trend. We can revisit this next August. Unfortunately, the trend is in the first 4 games of each season, they struggle out of the box. They don't play very well. Look at Old Dominion this year. But his end-of-season runs are extremely impressive. I mean, you're talking about now, I don't know the actual number, but over the last 3 seasons, if he wins on Saturday, that's 5 games against ranked opponents that he's beaten that I just know of off the top of my head. I think Florida was ranked pretty highly too when he beat them, or was a top 20 team. That'd be 6 wins if you go back to his first season. His teams play well in November. And this year, for a change, they're healthy. This is the healthiest the South Carolina team has been going into game number 12 in probably about 10 years. Whatever they've done down there has worked really well for keeping this team healthy.
Yeah. Well, peeking just a little bit past this season, it's been a great one for the Gamecocks. I'm curious of your take on, let's call it the funding war chest, NIL, big money booster support, and rivals, and it's probably similar in most of the services. I think South Carolina is about 22nd nationally in the team rankings. However, Auburn is trying to hang on to. There's one player in particular, Jared Smith, a Thompson High School product, who let's call him a 5-star. He's a must-have on Auburn's list, and he's been flirting. To Beamer's credit, he's been flirting with South Carolina, and of course, signing day is next week. But if you look at big picture, how would you describe the health and commitment of that financial funding, which is how it's probably going to be very predictive of who is contending for the playoff year in and year out?
Competitive. So I had a good conversation with Brad Crawford of 24/7 Sports about this about a week ago. And right now, if you look across the landscape, there's about 6 to 8 teams that have separated themselves nationally from everybody else they're all in. After that, you've got about 20 teams in a pool that are within, and it sounds stupid to say, but within about $1 million, $1.5 million of each other. South Carolina, we figured at that point about a week ago, was about 20 to 25 if you were to rank them. I think you just said 22. But look, and this is really interesting, and it's a big picture kind of thing. When you win football games and you land recruits and people see you see said recruits start to produce, i.e. Dylan Stewart, you go, oh, okay, well, that's what I see now what my money's paying for. I get what's happening here. So one of the
proof of concept, we like to call it.
One of the parts of tomorrow that is so big is South Carolina could win 9 games, which I think I gave the stat on our show a little while ago. I think it'll be the 7th time in school history that they've won 9 or more games. Well, that's great. I don't care if they make the playoff. If they can go to a bowl and win 10 games,
yeah, it's a big deal.
It would only be Spurrier did it 3 times and they did it once in 1984. It would be the 5th time. And so what happens is now you go into the offseason, and when he goes to these booster club meetings and they've got a big thing set up over to the side, it's NIL, he points at it and says, hey, you saw what we did with Dylan Stewart. You see what Nick Harbor's doing. You mentioned Jared Smith, who they're after. They're after Jared Smith from Auburn there, and Kevin Wynn, who's right there. I think he's number 54 overall. He's a defensive tackle. It makes Shane's job selling to the fan base a lot easier. Hey, look, this is the new age of college football. Look at what we just did with the money, because South Carolina made a big jump this year. So it's easy now for him to go, hey, we got to go get in the transfer portal. We got to go get a linebacker. We got to go get another edge rusher. We need another receiver. And fans go, I see what you did there. 10 wins. We can get to the playoff. Fans here are now learning how realistic it is. I don't think they thought that at the beginning of the year. They thought getting to a 12-team playoff would still be as hard, given being in the SEC, as getting to a 4-team playoff. Now fans are sitting there staring at it. You can see it. It's kind of like seeing it right over the other side of the hill, right? Like, oh, I'm almost there. I can almost get there. Okay, we just need to do this. Need another couple dots. Got it. Let's make it happen. So, yes, it is. That's why I think tomorrow is huge. I think very rarely will I ever say winning a bowl game is huge. But I actually think, based on South Carolina's history and the excitement, you kind of beg those players, please don't opt out. We want you to win. We got to win 10 games. We got to win 10 games. It'll be one of the few times that winning a non-playoff game is actually imperative to a program because of what you just said, selling it on the club tour.
You can use the word ascendant, and you've got the wins to back it up. Coach Freeze is doing an unbelievable job at selling ascendant with just the hope and belief, not the actual wins quite yet.
But on
the flip side of that, like I've said, because of having covered recruiting, and I'll never forget back in I think it was 2006 or 2007, South Carolina hosted Cliff Matthews. He was one of the first real big in-state prospects South Carolina got. He was set to go to Georgia. He was going to go to Georgia. They got him to hold off on his commitment. Well, Cliff Matthews came to a Thursday night game against Auburn. And I don't know if you guys remember that. Auburn was number 2 in the country. Kenny Irons was their running back. And Auburn had the ball for the entire third quarter. They kicked an onside kick. They had the ball. And South Carolina ended up losing 24-17. And after the game, what Cliff Matthews has said changed his opinion of why he came to South Carolina is Steve Spurrier grabbed him and said, if I had a guy like you, we would have made a sack. We would have made a play defensively. We would have gotten the ball back in the third quarter. I would have gotten us a touchdown with coaching, and we would have won that game. He goes, but I need a player like you to make that happen. So you talk about NIL money. Well, now Shane Beamer, if you can get to 10, even if you get to 9, he can go to Jared Smith or Kevin Wynn or some of these other guys that are tracking Mike Tyler, who's committed to LSU as a tight end. And he goes, look, I'm a guy away. Look how close we got to the playoff. Yep. I'm a guy away, and now I got this NIL money. Come play with us. We're a guy away from getting into those rankings. So it's huge for me from a future standpoint, not just this game tomorrow, but the bowl game as well.
Well, the sad thing in this recruiting environment, not even 10 wins assure you anything. You just got to pray like hell Larry Ellison's girlfriend doesn't take a shine to your number 1 recruit quarterback.
Yeah, no
because,
doubt.
$12 million comes out of the purse real quick.
That her conversation with Portnoy, golly, I mean, we all need to take a shower after watching that whole sad episode in recruiting. But nothing illegal occurred, right?
It's all fair in love and war and recruiting, boys.
Guys, I remember years ago being in the bookstore, in high school and college, and you see these jerseys. They'd have guys' names on them, asking then, 30 and 40 years ago, why can't these players make money off of them? That's what we always thought name, image, and likeness was, Will. And South Carolina, who are some of the big donors that you got? We'll just keep you a couple more minutes. I'll let you go. I know you've been up since about 4:30. And I'm seeing all the chatter coming in from everybody. I'm in Atlanta this week, missing duck season, the first split, the 9 days, Will. And I'm seeing all this chatter. So, they've been up since 3:30 or 4. So, but when they come back, they'll have a cocktail and go to sleep and take a nap. You can't do that. But talk about South Carolina NIL. You've got to be gaining momentum. And I'm with you. Those double-digit win seasons, those are impressive. That's what you want. That's savings and street cred. That you got to have it. 3 in a row, 11, 12, and 13 for Spurrier. Auburn's never done that. Not in the modern era.
I've got a stat somewhere on my computer. I was trying to finish it. There's only about 12 teams in the history of college football who have had 3 straight 11-win seasons. 11 of them have won national titles. You want to guess which one did not win the national title?
South Carolina.
Yeah. And didn't win an SEC either. But anyway, and only won one. Matter of fact, in those didn't win the SEC East in the 11-win seasons of all the crazy things. But anyway, it's people are excited. Now the funny part is it's taking away right now. Lamont Paris is able to be 4-3 in basketball, and nobody's saying a word. Nobody's even aware the basketball program is playing. It's a
yes,
good thing for him. But the truth is yeah, there's people right now. Again, it's like I said, it can be hard to sell a vision. It can be hard to sell a vision, especially coming off of a season where you didn't go to a bowl game. People are seeing Lenore Sellers now. They're seeing Dylan Stewart do this. They're seeing a guy like Demetrius Knight and Kyle Kennard in the transfer portal perform. And they're going, oh, all right, I see. All right, I physically see what's happening and what is going on. Yeah. And, there's a lot of people, I think, you look at what is happening here with the college football playoff rankings. South Carolina really blew that game against Alabama. You had the awful fumble by Lenore Sellers that he
should have won without being
touched. Without being touched. Has the 2-point conversion that would have tied it that was way off. They missed a field goal that I think hit a cheerleader on the sideline. It was so far right. That's the one you say, all right, that got away from us. We should have won that game.
Especially with getting the onside kick. Oh, my God, that was one of the greatest onside kick recoveries I think I've ever seen. And y'all couldn't get in the field goal position. It's crazy.
Yeah, just came unglued. But, yeah, so that's the point. There's a lot of people now who I think are seeing it. And that's the big part. Whether you talk about donors, big-time donors who have that kind of money, that now you say, hey, I've always said South Carolina's football problem, when all this was under the table, when we were just hearing about Corvettes and new houses and bags of gas, South Carolina had more donors that would have rather had their name on the wide receiver room and take their buddy down and go, hey, look at my name on the wall right here. Well, that's great. You just went 6-5 or 5-6. Your name's on the wide receiver room for a 5-16. There was more donors that wanted to be known for contributing than wanted to do it the way everybody else was doing it and not deserve the credit. Well, now you can get the credit, right? Oh, my business just gave $1 million. I'm responsible. I can go to my buddies. Yeah, so it's making a difference.
The Gaffney handshake.
Will, am I right? Celebs help a program, and South Carolina's got some. Am I right that Laura Trump, Ainsley on Fox? I mean, am I missing? Help me with celebs that call themselves game.
Darius Rucker.
Darius Rucker.
Darius, for sure.
Darius is kind of the big one. In terms of, Ric Flair under Steve Spurrier came around here a lot. There's a great story that I probably don't have time to tell
share.
About a buddy of mine leaving a game, walking up to a limo. Didn't know. Walked up to a limo. He was drunk. Knocked on the window. Guy rolls it down. He asked for a beer. It's Ric Flair. Ric Flair says, "Get in the limo," and they drive over to a gas station. And they buy a 12-pack of beer. And he sits in the. He goes, "There's the mo." He's got pictures with Flair and women and everything.
That's funny.
We haven't seen Ric Flair come back since Steve Spurrier left, but yeah, Darius is the big one. Ainsley Earhart. The thing with Ainsley is she married a former Clemson quarterback.
That'll ruin that.
And then they got divorced. So. Craig Melvin, who's on the who's on the Today Show, the Carolina band, South Carolina band was just there at the Macy's parade yesterday. I actually just forgot to mention that on air. I should have brought that up when I was doing the radio show, but of course people knew it. People were excited. But Craig Melvin yesterday was all dressed up in the band attire, and of course he's on the Today Show. So yeah, you got, but they don't contribute. It's not; those aren't the people throwing your money. You got people around here that I know that are that legit businesses, but. They're not like the celebrities like you need like that.
Well, I misspoke. Laura Trump's a proud Wolfpack grad. I don't want to get Wolfpack Nation after me.
And I've got a question, Rob. Can I one question to Will? It's a gambling question. I in my life have never seen a line move like this line has moved. Holy mackerel.
Good point.
It started out much higher, South Carolina getting points, and now it's 2.5?
It's
what's
been
going on with the move of the line?
They know something.
No, it's been. I don't know where you were looking. My Vegas insider guy sent me. It's been 2.5. About a week.
I thought I saw it at like 5.5 at one point. I mean, it might have been like an advanced line before they played last week. But the wise guys know something. I mean, it's down to 2.5. And again, South Carolina, I'm telling you, South Carolina's the play on this. You're getting points. I would take them also on a money line.
Yeah, it had Brian Edwards with Vegas Insider on the 21st. November. It said FanDuel had Clemson at -2.5. DraftKings had Clemson as a 4.5.
Yeah, you go.
FanDuel had 2.5. DraftKings had 4.5.
I think my bookie had 5.5 at one point. Should have jumped it.
FanDuel's had this. He sent me this on November 16th. He had FanDuel at 2.5. Yeah, I will say people are a little confused on why South Carolina fans, of course, are confused as to why Clemson is the favorite. I do kind of agree with that, but quite frankly, there's a reason I'm down $2,000 right now. So,
well, let me close with this. Brendan sent me a little note on the internal chat. Ric Flair is a Gator, so we have to know.
Right, but he was living it
and he's also
he was good friends with Spurrier.
Yeah,
kind of like Kenny Chesney. Chesney's a Tennessee guy, but Chesney was good friends. Chesney was supposed to come down and do a concert here. It's who Shane Boomer.
Yes.
Steve Spurrier, for different reasons, was popular and was charismatic with people that wanted to come be around. Shane's getting that way. If you look, Shane's always posing for pick. Anytime somebody comes, I don't know if he was. I actually was supposed to go. Jelly Roll was here. Pink was here last Wednesday, and Jelly Roll was here Friday. I got a feeling Shane found a way to end up on stage with Jelly Roll. That wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another Gamecock. We had her on the show Monday morning, Alyssa Lang of SEC Network. Yeah. She is very proud of that school from Charlotte. So that's good. But look, Will, awesome having you on here. Go have fun the rest of your day. Get a nap in. My son out in California, we're Grizzlies fanatics, from Memphis. John Morant, things are looking better. They're 12-5, 12-6. So we're looking forward to a lot of basketball talk, and we'll start it next week with you. So have a great Black Friday, a great weekend, okay?
Yeah, y'all got to get Gigi Jackson back too with that team there. His injuries set him back a little bit. We'll do that. Y'all have a great Black Friday. Happy college football weekend. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll catch up.
Thank you so much. Guys, let me say something about our sponsors. One of them, Winter Timber Outdoors, Athens, Alabama. What an awesome store. Went down there 3 weeks ago. Linked them up as a sponsor. They're open every day of the week. All the shooting sports. Start with your dove hunting, deer hunting, turkey hunting, duck hunting, quail hunting, goose hunting, all your big game hunting. They've got over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, and handguns in the store, and a very competent, well-trained staff. Again, open every day. Now, a cool part of this is their growth plan is to grow in the footprint that is the Southeastern Conference. They're opening a store, should be open by June, maybe earlier. They broke ground last week in Auburn, out on Opelika Highway. They're looking at Athens, Georgia. They're looking at Fayetteville, Oxford. They're looking to be in all these SEC towns. They've got great gear. They're a big Sitka dealer. Dixie decoys. They got duck camp. They've got everything that you need outfitting to go hunting. And take a picture of that QR code, Winter Timber Outdoors, Rete, Masimara, GPS, buy one, get one. Take a picture with your camera and click it, and you will be able to take that QR code and go and get that special right now. Let them know you heard about it on Sidelines. Again, open every day of the week, headquartered for 5 years now in Athens, Alabama, with a reach throughout the Southeastern Conference footprint. And you see that Winter Timber Outdoors, proud to have them as a sponsor. Looks like a slow day right now. All the chatter coming in from all my duck hunting buddies. I'll be back Sunday. Oh, boy. And then we split after sundown on Monday. But anyway, Frank and Doug will be joined in a few minutes by Ken Capps. And I was asking him a question.
He's going to be jacked up.
Yeah. And I said, would A&M people want a victory more over, Texas than they want to win the SEC or make the playoff? There's so many scenarios. And
why can't
Jordan
we have
Hill,
both?
Yeah, you get one, you get the other.
Yeah. And so Jordan Hill, I hope Jordan's okay. We missed him this morning. But, tonight, Georgia Tech and Georgia play. Brent Key was a member of that George O'Leary team, the last one to beat Georgia 3 straight years. And for Georgia Tech, that's a big ass deal. And tonight I'm supposed to go meet some friends and watch the Georgia Tech game. Both of y'all's questions, you were nailing it. And I tell you who we need to get as a sponsor: Yeti Blue Mike. I mean, y'all both sound
right there
awesome. And you put that thing up the way Frank's got it. I don't know if Doug's where Doug, but when you put them right up there by you, the audio gets right. But here's a question.
This hour sponsored by Yeti microphones.
I know right. Yeti Blues and Rode mic. I got a Rode mic here. But for both of y'all, you look at these games. The Egg Bowl is tonight. It's today.
Afternoon.
What do y'all think's going to happen in that one? Because Ole Miss. Okay, Bama's 13th in the rankings. Ole Miss is 14th, and South Carolina's 15th. All three of them win, and some crazy stuff happens.
I think Ole Miss wins, but I think Mississippi State can cover. I think they can stay within the 26.5. I really do. I think Ole Miss. I do too. Yeah. I think Ole Miss starts a little slow. Look, they had to have the win taken out of them by Florida last week. Had to have, right? And by the way, what a great day of football that was. We get to Doug's, watch the end of the Florida Ole Miss game. Then we go over to tailgate at Jordan-Hare. Watch a little bit of the afternoon game, but just have a great time. And we go in and sit in Jordan-Hare for one of the funnest games, 4 overtimes. Doug and I were sitting right down there by the goal line where it ended. And I'm telling you, that was just one of the funnest days. I mean, it was just incredible football. But yeah, I think Ole Miss, the disappointment and how poorly they played from a composure standpoint. I mean, they had lack of composure. And look, Kiffin kind of looked that way on a sideline too. It wasn't like he was in charge of it. And so I think they're going to come out and they're going to start out slow. They'll eventually win the game because, again, they are playing for something, but the steam has been taken out of them. And look, we know that Egg Bowl is a nasty, crazy, and look, Ole Miss has way better talent than Mississippi State does. They do. But I think Levy has them hanging around within a couple of touchdowns for most of the day.
What did and this is not Kirby's vintage best ever Georgia defense. They looked like it in Austin, but Mississippi State ranked some points up on the Bulldogs.
Sure did.
Right?
Sure did.
Here's an interesting.
It could be a game, and what we're going to know, and I feel the same way about Alabama. Except I think Alabama is going to bring their A game effort because of the nature. The committee gave them some juice, some hope. Yeah. And they just don't like Auburn and Alabama don't like each other. And I know that's true in the Egg Bowl, but we're going to find out in the first quarter what the state of mind of Ole Miss is, which is I couldn't predict it.
Here's an interesting stat, guys. Okay, they put 28 on Georgia, 26 on Oklahoma, but 23 was their standard. They were hitting 23 or less in their other SEC games. Yeah. They broke out for 63 at Arkansas, and that got everybody all giddy and excited. But what they do against Florida, I think Frank's on to something, as he is a lot. And look at that hat he's wearing. And I saw an Aggie fan with a sign during the Texas game with the horns up. He said, "Cut them off." I mean, I'm like, hey, it's not horns down; it's cut them off. I mean, this one's going to be how many? Like, what's the over and under on the number of bare knuckle fights in the parking lot before and after the game? Do they hate each other more, Doug, than Auburn and Alabama?
I have seen, I can probably count on one hand a fisticuffs at Iron Bowl games, but you have to go back quite a while. I think there is, in my sense of at least the fans who go to the game, most Iron Bowls, I think there's a lot of rancor and bitterness. But my little theory on when it's evenly matched, when it looks like you don't have a double digit, and we do have a double digit line in Tuscaloosa, but I think that's misleading. I think if you ask any Alabama fan, they'll tell you that they're at least mildly worried about Auburn in this game. Forget what the line is. But I think Auburn and Bama fans in the big game years where a lot is on the line for both teams, fans are you're when the game's over, if your team won, you're more relieved than you are excited. It's that kind of anxiety. I don't know if Ole Miss and Mississippi State claim the same dynamic, and I hope that fans would not resort to violence that way over anything. And Frank and I were at the Auburn game, and we had an uncharacteristically for a great fan base. One particular Aggie fan got a little too exuberant when the Aggies took the 31-28 lead, and it was close to breaking out into something that led to jail, a free night in Auburn City jail. But
which is under the stadium, by the way.
And look, I joked with Doug. I said, hang on a second. Watch this. The LSU guy is going to go be the voice of reason. That's never happened before.
And he had an LSU hat on. I kept having to tell everybody, he's okay. He's with me. It's all right.
All right. Look in the background. And
oh my goodness! Look at Buc-ee's.
I asked this, oh my God! Look at that sweater. I'm getting one. I'm getting one on the way back to Memphis. Here's a question, and I asked this the other day to Kim, but Frank and Doug wanted me to ask it. Does anyone ever order a Longhorn steak when they're out at a steakhouse, or do they just go for Angus aged beef? Because that is a beautiful mount in the background. I mean. Next thing I know, I'm going to have some guest on here that's an Auburn guy covering Auburn with a bald eagle mount in the background.
Well, first of all, that is a beautiful mount, and I love it so, and I get so many great compliments on it. But I just want to be very clear, because you've said this a couple times on the show. That is not a mount of a former Bevo. Okay?
Oh, of course not.
No way. No way. I mean, they'd come burn our house down if that was the case. No.
But Doug, Frank, I mean,
Bevos that go on to their maker they cremate them, and the ashes are spread on the football field in Austin, right?
Yeah. As it should be. Yeah, but Rob, I just want to let you know, I dug out my Buc-ee's sweater just for you, and I was getting out our Christmas boxes this week. And so after our lively discussion of Buc-ee's last week, when y'all were at the Auburn game, I said, I'm bringing this out in honor of all my brethren here on sidelines.
Well, I was at Buc-ee's last Friday in Leeds, Alabama, on the way to Atlanta, and stopped there again Sunday morning on the way back from Lake Martin in Auburn to Atlanta. And it's just, I'm going to tell you what, I met a bunch of people in there, and some of them watch this show, and I picked up several new people in Charleston and different places that are going, hey, man, we'll start watching it. So that sweater, by the way, Doug and
it's an
Frank, I think we should all get those matching sweaters to wear. Since it is the Christmas season starting today, I'm getting one of those things. That thing is absolutely beautiful. So
besides the great Ken, we've really enjoyed having you on all year. But besides Ken easily winning the tacky sweater competition for all of this holiday season, I'm also going to take it as an omen. We look for these little trends, Frank, that we should lay a lot of money on Oregon State Beavers today. Surely they play on November 30th.
Yeah, Civil War, I would guess. I'm sure they're playing Oregon.
Civil War. That is a big
take Oregon State and the points.
Yeah, the Buc-ee's Beavers.
And buy Buc-ee's stock.
Ken, I tell you, Mr. Buc-ee's is an A&M guy. So we're helping fuel NIL for A&M like they need more money. Let's talk about this matchup, Grudge Fest, hate match. I mean, it is WrestleMania on steroids, because it's been since 2011 since they played, and Texas won on the walk-off field goal. Kind of tell us what's happening out there, and kind of break it down. What do we not know about this rivalry that we better know quickly?
Well, I'll try to make it fast, but first I just wanted to show you this cover. Okay, this is the cover of Dave Campbell's Texas Football.
Yep.
That comes out in June. Okay, in June, and that's Connor Wegman and Quinn Ewers there on the cover. You know, a rivalry reborn. People have been thinking about this for months, for years. And of course, isn't it ironic that the guy on the cover, Connor, who predicted a Aggie victory already, isn't even going to play. You know, he's riding the bench, and Marcel Reed right there in Nashville is going to be the starter. You know, Greg Sankey could not have written this any better for for a first year, and I'm gonna be there in the press box on tomorrow night, and I really just want to talk to him and get some sound from him about. I mean, could you ever have written a story, written a screenplay, where the first time that Texas and Texas A&M are going to play in 13 years is going to be for all the marbles in the SEC. And is Kirk Bowles, my colleague there in Football Writers, who's also a columnist for the Houston Chronicle now after spending all those years at the Statesman, he's calling this the most important Texas A&M game in the history of the rivalry. And this will be the 119th game. Okay. So you've got so much on the line, not to mention the fact, something else that you said you wanted things that you might not know. Do you know that a ticket to this game is now the single highest regular season ticket price of any college or NFL game
of all time?
Not regular season, not Super Bowl, but regular season all time. And I think what's really ironic about this whole thing is that, living here in Texas, being a Texas grad, having lots of Aggie friends, and I mean really true Aggie friends, we joke about it a lot, but we've always talked about both teams have spent the last 13 years blaming each other for who left who, for who won't play who. Both teams say that they've reached out to play the other one, and the other one's rebuffed. Blamed each other. Said they don't need each other, just like a boyfriend and a girlfriend.
Yeah.
I don't need y'all. And man, there's been nothing but for the past 2 weeks, but just so much. I don't know if hatred is the right word, but just so much. I mean, hype going into this game. And they're going to try to pack that stadium tomorrow. I just read this in the Austin Statesman that their record crowd was 110,000 versus Ole Miss a few years ago. They're going to try to top that, and on top of everything else, and I'll shut up for stuff you didn't know. A&M is also bringing in extra loudspeakers to put on the Texas side of the field. They say they're bringing it in so people can hear the band better. Well, I've been to A&M. I can hear the band just fine in the stands, but that's the reason for it. But you know what it's for? It's to mess around with the Longhorns.
No doubt.
And I told somebody this week, I said, now, isn't that what the Koreas do to each other? They pipe across loud music at each other.
Across the DMV. Yeah,
exactly.
DMV. By the way, I think this is exactly why Texas wins this ball game, because I think the home field is not going to be an advantage in this one. I think it's so built up. It is so much of these 13 years, the stealing of the baseball coach. It's so much that it's going to weigh on Texas A&M. I think Texas is going to be far freer. They can come in as the visiting team. There's no distractions. They can focus on it. I think Texas wins this ball game because Texas A&M has made it to be too big in their mind. And that's going to be something that's going to be hard to carry on to the field and execute. And it reminds me a little bit of when Alabama came to Auburn for the very first time, that big buildup coming back. And I'm just, I can see Texas going in there and methodically beating A&M. And let me tell you something, Ken. Doug and I and Rob were in Jordan-Hare watching that game. There was a little bit of Texas Aggie soul got left on that field in Auburn. It really did, and I think there's going to be a carryover effect on this. I'm just questioning. I want to hear your take, and I know Doug wants to chime in now, but at some point you need to speak about Ewers and where everything stands on his health and that.
Go ahead and react to that, Ken.
Sure. Well, that's what to me. That was going to be my next point right here on all my great notes that I take for sidelines. No, I think the game is really going to boil down to the two defenses. And here's why I say that. Texas has had the number one defense for most of the year. Somehow they've slipped to number two since the game against Kentucky. I'm not really sure how, but they've still got a damn good defense. What they're going to have to do, though, is control and contain Marcel Reed, because they can. I'm sure they'll get to him. I'm sure they will rush him. But as you saw against Auburn, where he is the most dangerous is on the broken play. When everybody gets out of their lanes and either he takes off down the field on his own, or somebody's lost their coverage out here in the atmosphere, and he finds an open receiver.
Very Milrow-esque.
Right. So I think exactly. And so I think that's what is going to be the challenge for Texas. And then on the other side, A&M is not a very good defense against the run. So can Texas get their running game going, which, they rushed for over 258 yards against Kentucky the other day. And, just really pounded the ball on them. But, of course, and you go back to Ewers. Ewers had an MRI on Monday. He's got a sore ankle, okay? They thought it's mildly sprained. He's listed as probable. If the Aggie defense, all four of us could think up the number one thing to do: rush the living daylights out of Quinn Ewers, sack him, and put him on the ground. And so there's a very real chance in this game, I think, that you may see Arch Manning as well. And boy, wouldn't that even add more to the drama and the craziness of this game?
That would be a meltdown.
In the last 3 years, Quinn Ewers has missed 7 games or 8 games due to injuries. Is that correct?
Something like that. Every year he's been hurt and missed several games. And, Texas has been lucky enough to have a great quarterback behind him. They had Malik Murphy last year. This year they got Arch Manning, and has been able to go ahead and get through. But let's just put it this way: when he comes out of the tunnel tomorrow night at 6:30, he is not going to be at full speed or full strength with that ankle. So we'll see how that goes.
Arch gets some playing time. You watch; he'll get some playing time.
Ken, I'm going to role play, and I don't believe this, but I'm just for fun. I'm going to role play most of the media in regard to the Longhorns right now. Who have y'all played, Ken? And the signature win is Vanderbilt. Now, if I'm Sarkisian, you better believe part of my pregame hype is going to say, well, guys, apparently we're not a very good team. We haven't played anybody despite being in the Southeastern Conference. And you get a chance to make a statement about that in one of the tougher places to play. And I agree with Frank. I was always happy for Duff to steal my thunder, because it just means great minds think alike, right? I'm
the wire.
Sorry to be in your wake there, Frank. But
no.
I think the emotion and all game volume. Now, Texas A&M has to do something to help their crowd. You got to give them something to cheer about. And of course, getting a fast start will be what's on Texas' mind to keep the crowd under control a little bit. If Texas gets out to an early lead, it's stupid to say the first quarter will tell us a lot, but this might be one of those games for the Longhorns where it really is a big deal. The first quarter, we talked the data I went over last Saturday, sort of portending the home dogs upset in 3 big games last Saturday. The first quarter, it's worth being at home, especially in this kind of College Station environment. Kyle Field is worth about 5.5 points. And you usually hear betting lines say, well, we give a team 3 points in consideration of them being at home. So tell me what you think Sarkisian will do, because I think the task at hand, I don't care if there was an emotional 4 overtime loss. The crowd can lift the Aggies above that mental fatigue. I don't think there's physical fatigue over that. Their coaches are smart enough to get their legs back under them this week. But how will Sarkisian emotionally and mentally have his team ready to play this kind of game?
Hey, Ken, let me say something real quick about Landers. Brad Bellamy hopefully going to join us here in a couple of minutes. But Landers Forward, folks, pay attention. $500 off for SEC Sidelines audience members. The number one Ford dealership in the Mid-South, Poplar and Houston Levy. Look, LandersFordMemphis.com. Here's Brad Bellamy, general manager, and Brad's going to get into this football talk with us. And Ken, don't forget that question, because that's a great question Doug just asked you. But Landers is open every day except Sunday. Service department, keep this in mind, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I'm bringing sand to the beach because I've got Landers on here with us right now. But what I'll tell you this from friends that have gone out there, they said, Brown, I'm glad you told me to go there. Said it was easy and the process was seamless, and they really actually want you to get what you need. They're not going to just try to sell you something that you don't fit into. So, Brad, again, I'm like a guy warming up for Robert Plant, man. And don't ask him to play Stairway to Heaven. He'll walk off the stage. But how you doing, man? Happy Thanksgiving.
Man, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Black Friday. Happy day after Memphis came through and beat Tulane to really throw another wrench in everybody's plans. Guys, it's Black Friday. Landers Ford has great deals. We're at an extra $500 off every new vehicle today and tomorrow only. And then on F-150 and Expedition, extra $1,000 off. So it's going to be a beautiful day here in Memphis. And who cares about the Egg Bowl? It's going to be a blowout, so don't worry about it. Come buy a car instead, guys.
Oh,
hopefully not by 26 and a half.
Lay the 26 and go to Landers.
Hey, so, you got color TVs all over the place out there.
Guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Ken, answer that question that Doug asked you. And by the way, Brad, if you want one of those sweaters that Ken is wearing, I'm going by Buc-ee's on the way back from Atlanta to Memphis on Sunday. What are you, a large, XL? I'll get you one. Is that not beautiful?
It's. I mean, I don't know what's more beautiful, that or did Sam Pack hook you up with his Longhorn, Ken? Is that what you got in the background? You took it off.
Love it.
Hey, I know Sam Pack. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. Great dealership.
If you go to the Buc-ee's near Auburn, they're selling these for $2. These Texas A&M hats. They wasn't able to sell last weekend.
I bet.
Well, who have y'all played, Ken? Who have y'all played?
Well, and that's the thing. What the Aggies are saying, if the pundits want to be that way, they can say that all they want. Texas, the only top 25 Texas team, the only top 25 team that Texas has played has been Georgia, and they lost. Okay?
Yeah.
And so what Sark has been telling the team, and it's been written up time and time again over the last couple of weeks, because that's been the saw on Texas for a while now. And of course, Texas keeps its number 3 ranking every week because all they do is keep winning. And he says, look, we're playing who's on our schedule. Whoever's on our schedule, we've got to beat. I mean, so let's go to the game last night. And I watched that game. I thought about all of you guys, Brad, and especially Rob, and I was watching that. Hey, did Memphis just take Tulane completely out of the CFP in any consideration? Abso-freaking-lutely they did. And you know what? But they were on the schedule. So Texas could have easily slipped up, and we talked about it several times, could have easily slipped up against any of these tough SEC teams that Texas has played. Vanderbilt, tough game. Would Texas rather be on the winning side of Vanderbilt, or would you rather be Alabama this year? Okay. Yeah. So you know what? You play who you play, and I'm just repeating the message that Sark has told his team is just to, you play who's ahead of you. And that's how they're going to try to look at A&M tomorrow. Sark really understands this rivalry because, when he was Alabama offensive coordinator, he played the Aggies. Yeah. And in fact, he beat Mike Elko, who was defensive coordinator at the Aggies. He beat him twice. Yes. So, he understands all this. But the one thing that I think you said, Doug, and that concerns me is that, if Texas gets off to a fast start, you said, Texas never gets off to a fast start. That's the only problem. The first quarter always seems to be tough for Texas, especially the last 3 or 4 games. And so, if A&M would, pick off a Ewers pass he seems to get a lot of passes tipped at the line of scrimmage. I don't know if you've noticed that all year, but if he gets a pick six, or Texas has also had the fumble bug here lately. Yeah. If A&M picks up a fumble and runs it back, or at least gets the ball in good field position and scores, that's going to change the dynamic of the game a lot right there off the bat. And so once again, it'll come down to the defense. Can the Texas defense has been able to overcome a lot of the interceptions and the fumbles on the offensive side of the ball by just absolutely smothering the other team when they get those turnovers, and holding them to either not letting them get a point at all, but certainly holding them to a field goal rather than a touchdown. And I've watched that all year long. And Texas fans talk about that all the time, like, because this is the best Texas defense probably since the 1970s. And remember those days, when Darryl Royal, Brett Akers.
That 83 defense you had with Mossy Cade and Jerry Gray, Adam Schreiber on the offensive line out of Huntsville.
Amen. Yep.
18 players drafted or free agents off the starting 22. That's
Brett Akers' team. Yeah, lost to Georgia in the Cotton Bowl.
10-9. All right, I'm going to throw Brad in here. And Doug, Frank had to go. He's he's the Grand Marshal of a nude Shriners parade in Jasper, Georgia later this morning. But Brad, nobody's really talking much about this one. But last week we talked about Oklahoma and Alabama, and I kept saying, that's two proud programs, two of the 6 winningest programs in the history of college football. Brent Venables was announced about his wife's battle with cancer. She's, just keep her St. Peregrine as the patron saint of cancer patients, and I always pray to him every day, because unfortunately we know people that are fighting that. But man, he's a tough guy. And they came out and just had a masterpiece game plan against Alabama. What do you think, Brad, about Oklahoma at LSU this weekend? And I'm going to bounce it. And then, Doug, you chime in after that. But big game. Again, 2 of the 11 winningest programs in the history of college football squaring off in Death Valley.
I mean, Rob, you talked about how great this college football season has been and the excitement around it.
Yeah.
I'm fatigued. I'm worn out. I'm at the point now where I am tired.
You're a Bama fan, too.
I am tired. It's not just Bama. I'm tired of, it's one thing when we have one upset and you get excited about, that team lost in October, that team lost in November, they couldn't keep where they lost. But when the teams that aren't supposed to lose are losing 2 or 3 or 4, I'm worn out. I'm at the point now, and I'm like dyslexic. When I look at the board of all the spreads now, I'm so clueless at this point in the season. Every underdog won last week in the SEC. Every underdog but 2 won in the Big Ten last week. There's not one, but they covered. And so, who is Oklahoma? I don't know. Alabama, they were awful. Milroe was what I expected to happen in the LSU game happened in the Oklahoma game. They've struggled on the road. For the last couple of years, Milroe struggled on the road. Every time they have a road game, he's not played well. They got lucky against Auburn last year. So, I thought was going to happen at LSU didn't happen, and happened at Oklahoma instead. And, I think LSU's a better team. I don't know what Oklahoma is what's going to happen this week. I have no clue. I am as clueless as I've ever been about college football. I'm starting to flip coins now just to see what happens. I feel like it's going to be a low scoring game. I think Oklahoma's defense is pretty strong. Even when they played earlier in the year in some of these games, it wasn't the defense that killed them. It was the ineptitude of their offense. And their offense wasn't good against Alabama either. Milroe throws a pick 6, just like the Vandy game. And it was a field possession deal where they had a couple of big plays and Alabama didn't. If I'm having to bet on the game, I'm picking LSU probably. But I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. What do you guys think?
This is where I appreciate Brad being humble enough to say this year has, to use that same word, humbled those serious players. And we can theorize about why. I think the biggest one is The league got tougher. If you just stick to SEC games, whether they're playing out of conference or not, and it's the margin of error has got to be frustrating some in Vegas because your reliability goes out the window, the coach's reliability, that is, because they don't have the same second and third string quality maybe that they're used to. And again, it's just a tougher league. So as for I would look at this LSU Oklahoma game. I would look at the letdown factor. Oklahoma going on the road. It's in Death Valley, right, Rob?
Yep.
I think it's asking a lot of Oklahoma to put in intense effort for 4 quarters, and I think they'll need it. I know LSU's had a disappointing season, but it's still Death Valley. So I lean a little toward LSU simply because I think Oklahoma had big celebrations that went past this past Sunday, and I just wonder if they'll be able to put in that kind of – I don't think that LSU's offensively will attack the way Alabama tried to because there's a different team. Nussmeier's more comfortable. He's got his own flaws, but Nussmeier's a little more comfortable if he's required to stand in the pocket and try to deliver.
Ken,
well,
what do you think happens?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Doug said. But I look at the other side of the coin. I have just been, reading and looking at LSU the last 3-4 weeks, and there is so much infighting on that team. The players fighting with Kelly fighting with the players. Each side f-bombing each other.
Yeah.
The alumni looking at the buyouts for Kelly. He's not going anywhere. That cost LSU. They don't have that much oil money over in Louisiana like the Aggies have over here.
Yeah.
They couldn't pay out his buyout, so he's not going anywhere. And I'm just, I've been very concerned that Nussmeier has just played really, terribly, to be honest with you. Certainly not living up to his expectations of what he was supposed to play. And I wonder if it's kind of the tale of two schools that have had disappointing seasons. You've got one school coming off this incredible win that they'll be talking about for the ages. They may even talk about this win more than one time they beat Texas a long time ago. Or you've got LSU. There's so much infighting. I don't see a lot of team unity there. I don't see a lot of playing for each other. I think it's kind of one for one and one for one. And so I think it'll be very interesting to see who comes out and really wants that game. You would think that LSU would want to finish its season there at home on a strong note. But heck, I mean, you jump up with that Jackson Arnold, running game again, and the freshman Xavier Robinson, Oklahoma could pull another one. So, yeah. I mean, I really don't know where to go with that, but in most cases, you would say yes, LSU is the clear favorite, but they've just got so much internal dissension. I don't know where they're going to be, where their heads are going to be on Saturday.
Jacques Doucet was on the show Wednesday with us from WAFB Channel 9 in Baton Rouge. And, guys, he talked about the crowd. He goes, it ain't going to be full. A lot of people have checked out. And y'all are right. LSU, when you see a coach a player back-talking a coach, the chain of command has been broken. There's a term they use in the military. It's called, when they get inside your perimeter of defense, it's called broken arrow. Remember that in the movie We Were Soldiers? I think Oklahoma goes down there and gets the win because LSU, the problems you just referred to are also a big deal. A couple of things to add on to what Brad and Doug, Ken, all of y'all have said. What a weird season. The Big 12 can go to its fan base, the TV package this weekend, and say there's 6 or 7 games you need to be watching because we don't know who's going to play in our conference championship. And the guy that was a backup at Alabama or Georgia 3 or 4 years ago is now a starter at Indiana or Tulane. That's the world that we live in. But you know what would make life better for all of them? If they had on some good-looking boots from Hewlett & Dunn driving a Sasquatch package Bronco. I'm telling you, Brad, my son's living out in Sequoia National Park in California. You talk about a weird place the other night. He goes, Dad, they're calling for 2 or 3 feet of snow here, so I can't get back up to the Bigfoot store. I wanted him to go get me some Bigfoot hoodies. 2 or 3 feet of snow, and they're at 7,200 feet. And he goes, so what they ended up getting was a foot of snow and 25 inches of rain. I'm like, this is like stuff in the Bible. But anyway, they do have color TV out there to watch college football. Guys, let's talk about a couple of more games. You know, Arkansas's at Missouri, and that Arkansas's bowl eligible. Just we'll do the 30 seconds. We're going to do a rapid fire here the last part of the show. Brad, does Arkansas win at Missouri, and what are they playing for?
Take this with a grain of salt, guys. I'm 0-5 the last 5 weeks picking Arkansas.
Here we go.
All right. Missouri -3. Missouri -3.
Okay, Doug.
Yeah, I like Pittman, and I want him to stick around. I guess he is coming back next year, but I would lean just slightly to Mizzou in that one. Again, sticking with the home field dynamic that's been pretty big all year.
All right, Ken, on this game, and then we're going to get to Florida and Florida State because we got a lot of Gators, and we got a boatload of Gators that watch this show on this channel. We've got this show, the Buddy Martin Show, Best Fridays in Football with Urban Meyer, and then SECU, which is a specialty deal. And Ken, what do you think happens up there with the Fighting Pittmans and Eli, who is from Alma, Arkansas, by the way, right there on I-40 where you turn off to go up to Fayetteville through the beautiful Boston Mountains?
And boy, Coach Drink has sure had a surly mouth on him all year, hasn't he?
Yes, yes.
Especially after last week, man. Wow. I think Missouri wins that game. I don't think there's any question about that. Missouri has also had a disappointing season to what they expected, and all these teams losing to South Carolina. Wow, South Carolina, hats off to them this year for being the real spoiler in the SEC for so many different teams. But I don't think Arkansas has the firepower to beat Missouri. And you guys are used to this kind of thing. But again, I read a story about this game. This is going to be the coldest game that Missouri, of course, but Arkansas has played in like years. It's going to be like in the 30s. The temperature is going to be dropping. So, and you laugh, well, who cares? But those things make a difference. So I'm picking the Tigers all the way.
Yeah, and when Alyssa Lang was on the show earlier on Monday, I said, what's your game? Texas A&M, Texas? She goes, nope, I got Arkansas at Missouri in Como. She goes, I always check the weather. She goes, it's going to be a low on the sidelines of 19 degrees. And, women don't like cold air like men do. That's why my wife never goes duck hunting with me. But that'll be an interesting one. All right, guys. Brad, let's start with you. Florida travels to Tallahassee to take on a Florida State team that is basically the respirators on, the priest is in the room, and they're calling the kinfolk to the bedside. They could go 2-10, or they could be 3-9. They've never lost 10 games in a season. What do you think happens there, and how big a turnaround is it with Billy Napier and the Fighting Gators? But also, guys, if you're paying attention to recruiting, they're flipping guys almost every day. And DJ Lagway is the future of college football. He's not as big physically, muscles as Tim Tebow, but he's got an arm unlike Tebow did not have the arm that DJ Lagway has. Agree or disagree?
I mean, what a difference a year makes, right? Yeah. I mean, this game
few weeks.
This game
wow.
This year, I mean, and even earlier in the year, I mean, when I first started coming to the show, there was Fire Napier signs, and now it's more expensive to go to this game than it is to go see Oklahoma versus LSU.
That's a great point.
Florida State's awful. I mean, they're awful. I don't see a scenario in which Florida doesn't cover this game. The only thing that Florida State has going for it is you have a whole bunch of players that that's basically a tryout for other schools today. This game is like, who can watch this game and see how good I am against Florida? Because I feel like that team is gone. And the only thing you have for you is guys trying to individually have an effort to try and get somewhere else. So I mean, Florida at Florida State. What's that atmosphere going to be? I mean, is it going to be, with that ticket price being what it is it going to be half Florida fans? Is that what's going to happen, Brendan?
I bet. I bet.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Brendan, yeah. I mean, Doug, this game still is. You talk about two schools that hate each other, man. I mean, good God, this is an undervalue. This is
I don't think that will be. I don't think it doesn't matter how bad Florida State is. I just don't. I would be shocked if it was half in Tallahassee. I would be shocked. It's just not. It's also far away. It's not as close as people think distance wise either. So.
Yeah, but there are a lot of Gators in that panhandle, Doug. I mean, it'll be. Look, these rivalry games. You get down to it. The question is, it gets for the in-state kids. It means more when you got a guy from California that doesn't grow up. I think that's what's starting to happen in the SEC.
Yeah.
Is Auburn and Alabama got kids from 15 or 20 different states on the roster. I mean, Auburn's punters from Australia. I think that's north of Grenada, isn't it? I mean, that's a long way away.
They have a Buc-ee's there too.
Yeah, they do. Doug, what do you think happens though? Noles, they got pride, but Gators have DJ Lagway.
Yeah, the pride only gets you so far. But I guess I look at it. I'm not a point spread guy. I'll leave that to Brad and a few others that come on here. But in terms of expertise and a proven record. But I don't know. I would rather live with myself if you make me wager on some of these, picking Florida, because Florida has earned that, right? My goodness, have the turnaround and the weight of the world on them. Not even a month and a half ago of losing, and is Billy Napier going to be back? I think the headspace for the Gators is really, really good. That usually in big rivalry games, the team riding into that game feeling confident, sometimes that helps. Not always. And like this Saturday, we'll get to the Iron Bowl, but that's why I felt great about Texas A&M Auburn. I thought Auburn would be in that game and have a shot, and then. I feel pretty much the opposite. I think the dynamics are more in Alabama's favor going into the Iron Bowl, but I digress. I think Florida's going to – I don't know about covering spreads, but I like Florida a lot in this one.
Brad, anything jump out at you that makes you – what are you worried most about if you're Billy Napier besides going to Tallahassee?
I think the biggest thing you're worried about is, your players may be looking past the game. Florida State's down, and you got to make sure that they're focused. It's still your rival. They're going to come out. It's the most important game that Florida State's had in weeks, and making sure that your guys are ready for the game. But I mean, there's no weapons that you're worried about at Florida State. It's are you going to be able to execute? Are you going to be able to take care of the ball and make plays when you need to make plays? I mean, the reason Memphis won that game last night is not because they stopped Tulane. It's because Tulane fumbled the ball 3 times in the, within the 10-yard line, or they fumbled it twice and threw an interception. I mean, turnovers have become so huge this year. I mean, they're always a big deal, but I feel like dramatic shifts in games because of pick sixes. I mean, look at the Auburn-Oklahoma game. I mean, Auburn wins that game if that doesn't happen. I mean, there's just so many times this year where I feel like that's gone on. But, being focused, I think, is the biggest thing. But what is Florida State? I don't know, man. Like I said, I've been so bad lately. Florida State's probably going to win the game. I did though say last week.
I'm sorry, your mic's cutting out, Brad. We didn't hear that last comment. That's great. Thanks for Brad coming in from Ford.
A little data point that might be worthwhile when programs are down. What is one of the last moves a head coach gets to make to buy himself a year or two? Fire some assistants, fire a coordinator.
In your rivalry game.
Word to me, and I don't want to say directly from Coach Norvell's mouth that would be speculating, but that if he hasn't already, Norvell is going to be replacing not a small number of coaches. So you have to wonder if they know that, suspect it, and they should. How much commitment do you get in preparation and in game when you've got that kind of depressed dynamic?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess
I was going to ask you guys, like, is Mike Norvell kind of like Billy Napier in a sense? Because remember last year going in, like Mike Norvell was like, well, Florida State's going to suck. They got to turn it around. And then all of a sudden he turns it around. They go undefeated. You know, they have this magical season. And now, now Billy Napier's, you see the interest, and now all of a sudden the wheels come off. Too much success, too good. He didn't handle the success well. Message was wrong. We all know that story. Here we are. But here we were last year at Florida State going into the swamp. Florida coming out of that Missouri win or loss that really should have been a win, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. Had a possibility. A lot of questionable, calls. Graham Mertz is hurt. Team is falling apart. No one knows what, but they're going in. Florida plays Florida State pretty good, even though the quarterback was out, even though there was a different team, even though Allah, because this is not just a rivalry game, but this is like the rivalry game to me, in college football. Like, to me, this is the grudge match of grudge matches. In the past, it's meant so much. And now it means so much again. It always seems to mean something, this game.
Well, every game.
As far as sculpting the landscape of the current year of that college football narrative, a la 2024.
Yeah. Well, I think it does. I mean, and look, we'll wrap it up now, but this weekend, we still don't know going into week 14, gentlemen, who the two teams are. We know Georgia is, but we still got to play. When was the last time we had this much suspense? And Brad referred to it earlier. You're right. Every week, I don't think the TV people thought it would be this good. We did think there'd be a lot of interest with a 12-team playoff, but this has been absolutely fantastic.
Hey, by the way, Doug, you're picking Florida. Brad, you're picking Florida.
I got the Gators.
Okay, and the points, or Brad, you didn't pick.
No, I'm picking the Gators. I mean, but they did fire. I mean, didn't Florida State just get rid of both their offensive and defensive coordinators
after the Notre Dame game? Yeah,
after Notre Dame.
After that question, maybe what you're worried about if you're Napier is what does the scheme look like with the new coaches in place? And these guys are now trying out for a full-time position. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, it makes you nervous.
Rob,
Brad, that's a great point. You got no tape on these guys strategy as far as current regime in current place, like as a Florida State coach.
Rob, do you mean to skip the most intense rivalry in all of college football in our picks? That is the Iron Bowl?
No, we talked about that earlier.
God.
We talked about that earlier, but no, go back to that one. I mean, that game tomorrow, what's Auburn, 11.5, Doug, or 12.5 point?
What's 12.5, Brad? What are you seeing?
11.5, and you got Vandy, the same situation. They're going on the road to Nashville to play against Tennessee. I think that I'm going to say the same thing I said last week. One of those games is going to be a lot closer than anybody predicted it to be. And I'm really hoping it's a Tennessee Vandy game and not Alabama Auburn. But, Alabama, I mean, oh man, I would love to see Alabama win 21, 28 points this game. But Auburn's held tight and been close in games all year. They just haven't won. And I think Vandy's going to keep it close with Tennessee. Both teams have a good defense. Tennessee's offense has not been phenomenal. And, I think that's going to be a close game, just like Vandy was close at Death Valley last week.
It seems there's a lot of Iron Bowls to me. As I said, Brad, I'm not playing, poor mouthing, but if you only looked at one Saturday a week ago, you could delude yourself into thinking, wow, Auburn is the ascendant team. Alabama's going to – I know, too, Alabama's played very well at home this year except for that South Carolina game, arguably. And I think I'll be very surprised if Alabama doesn't come out on fire. But to your point, the consistent thing Auburn has had most of the year, with rare exception, was playing pretty solid defense. And so I think one of the keys to this game, we always talk about turnovers. Neither team can afford either a short field on a turnover, much less a pick six or scoop and score. But I think, interestingly, both teams are going to want to run the ball and be run heavy. And I think both will have some success running the ball. I wouldn't trade Jarquez Hunter for anybody else in the SEC. If a couple of programs will disagree. But I think it's going to be pass protection. There's going to be, I don't think you see either team try to air it out 30 times unless one got behind and they have no choice. But I think the team that is able to give their QB a little bit of time for some, 6 or 8 of those shots downfield, and they both got receivers that can cause you problems. I think that will be the difference in that team being able to get to the fourth quarter and have a chance to win. If you're Auburn, if you're Alabama, you want to harass Peyton Thorne and see if you can get him to revert to some of his habits from before last week. And I just don't have any feel for this game because I can't be in Alabama's team's head and how quickly are they over that tough loss. And in the case of Auburn, are they really riding high now and confident, or will the season-long habits that were problems rear their head again on a road environment?
Great point. Great point.
That's a great point. And I do think, Alabama still has outside hope of making the playoff. If they can come in and absolutely destroy Auburn, and you have a team get knocked off that's not supposed to this weekend, then you got a chance. And I think that's what DeBoer is saying is, guys, we're still in this. We're still fighting for it. We're still the better team. We have the ability to do this. We're at home. We've been awesome at home.
And Alabama likes to play this role. My God, they love to do this where they can, it's like there's experience in the sense of hey, we're never out of it. We're Alabama. We're never out of it. It's like every year we're saying it. So you're saying Bama still got a shot, It's
right.
That's why some of these people are like, I just picked Bama and you can have everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee loses to Vandy, then Alabama's probably back into the deal. If one of the ACC teams loses this weekend, then they're only going to get one team. So,
Brad, I'm not going to equivocate. You're going to love this, Brad. Bama fans, turn your volume up. I've been doing this a while, man. I'm not 30 years old anymore. Alabama, if you beat Auburn tomorrow, and that would be my bet. I'm not going to enjoy that bet, but that's what I expect to see. Hope I'm wrong. But I think Alabama does sneak into this playoff because we all year long. Why would it change today and tomorrow, that we have upsets we're not expecting? South Carolina beats Clemson, that helps you. And I think Vandy could easily beat Tennessee in Nashville. And I'm forgetting somebody. So I think Alabama's not in a bad spot.
No. Ken, let me throw this at you. First time Auburn-Alabama game's been on ABC since 1994. And remember who the broadcast team was? Whoa, Nelly. Keith Jackson. And Jackson. Mr. Bob Greasy. So that was interesting. Another thing, I think the last couple of years, Auburn's ran for close to 600 yards against Alabama. Both games losses. Hard to believe. This is the first Iron Bowl matchup, Ken, that I can ever remember where both teams' strengths are their receiving cores.
Oh, yeah.
And if you take about who's got the best running back between the two schools, it's Jarquez Hunter out of Neshoba County, Mississippi, Philadelphia. Cowboy, I call him. I think this is a weird game. Ken, you're wearing a weird sweater, but I love it. I'm getting one Sunday, and I love that sweater. So take us out here. And let me say, man, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and find ways to help people. I don't care what you got to do. You'll be richer for it. The stronger you are, the stronger you are for others. But carry us out of here, Ken, with some words of wisdom, because what Brad and Brendan and Doug just said was brilliant. Top that.
Well, hey, I don't know if I can top that brilliance. I mean, but I think Alabama's got to win this game, and they know it. They cannot, after what's happened to them all season, lose to yet another underdog. And so I think Kalen DeBoer, again, I watched Kalen DeBoer and talked to him at the Sugar Bowl this past year. He didn't somehow forget the coach between the Sugar Bowl and the Auburn game. So I think Alabama's going to win this game. Brad, I hope that puts your mind at ease. And
First Iron Bowl pressure on DeBoer. You do have to consider that.
I do. But I think
that seat is on fire.
But I just don't think that they're going to tolerate losing to one more underdog, and he's really going to play that up. So roll Tide.
Okay. All right. Well, we got to end the show, man. Awesome stuff. Have a great time. Get out to Landers, Hewlett and Dunn, Exo Armor. All of our sponsors are at sidelines.live. Thanks, everybody, for watching. For executive producer Brendan Martin, it's Rob Brown from Smyrna, Georgia, stopping at Buc-ee's Sunday for that sweater. Take care, everybody. See you Monday morning. Coach Johnson will try to make sense out of all this craziness. Thanks for watching.
Bye, John Boy. Good night.
Take care, John Boy.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Stay gold, Johnny. Stay gold.
Brendan, I want one of those sweaters. That's a great looking sweater. That's all I got to say.
It's a polo. I think I stole it when I used to be a caddy at Castle Pines. Can't talk about that. See you next week.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.